And I'm gonna take a paraphrase out of what God says in the book of Joshua. Joshua 24:15. And these words are in there. Believe me, they are. Choose you this day who you will serve. Either you're going to serve the Lord or you're going to serve Satan. Either way. I use the word Lord or Satan. I don't want to get into the whole thing. But you have the right to choose, and you also have the right to refuse. We know that the liberal Democrats are pushing the idea that everybody is equal and equality. This is part of the problem with being equal and having equality. Everybody's the same. Everybody's the same according to the liberals and Democrats. Now, where did they get that idea from? The communists and socialists. Mainly the communists. Because the communists don't recognize anybody as an individual. They recognize you as a slave to their environment. And they recognize the fact that you have no right to refuse. Because if you do, you are probably dead or relocated to someplace else where no one can find you. So the right to refuse is not, and I'm going to repeat it, it's not a right, according to the liberals and Democrats. Now, they've used the constitutional amendments that come after number 10, the 18th for sure, and they use a few others that say, well, and they distort them to the point where, and say, well, you're an employer, and you want to hire somebody, you got to hire someone that you disagree with, no matter what. A church, such as where I go to, I happen to be a voting member. I happen to be a member of that church with integrity. Not everybody's going to agree with me, but that's fine. But here's the thing of it is, I have the right to in this church, if someone petitions to be a member of our church, to refuse to say they could come in. I have that right to vote them out. I do not have the right I have the right to do this. I have the right to choose and to say. Because if I feel that someone's not going to hold true to the doctrine of the church, then I have the right to vote them and say, you're not going to hold true to the doctrine. We can't have you in our church. That's just it. Go find another place to worship, please. And that is a right that I have to say. Now, I know that there are other Protestant churches out there that would say different. Allow them in. People say that's not a very good Christian attitude. It is, and here's why. The right to refuse a person because of their sexual orientation is what God is all about. God does not have to allow us human beings into heaven. But He gave us a choice. And that choice came from salvation. That choice came from salvation by looking onto the cross for full forgiveness of all your sins. Once you make that commitment, yes, you're going to be a sinner. That's just it. I mean, we all do it. And believe me, I do it too. I'm not saying I'm no different. The Pope Francis, he does it all the time. Puts his foot in his mouth. He's a sinner. He's no different. But here's the thing. Christ said it a couple of times. He healed people, and he told people to stop sinning. Put your belief in me. That's simple, isn't it? Now, there are those who say, well, God's not going to refuse me in heaven because I believe in being a sexually immoral person, or a person that believes in there should be sexually immorality or promotes it. Let's put it this way. God has that right to refuse you. God has every right to refuse you. And guess what? God will refuse you into his heaven, because he does state the words, I know you not. Depart from me, you evil and wicked person. Now, he would love to see every human being in heaven. There's no doubt about that. He also takes the agape approach. I love you because you are my creation. He loves people. That's a good way of putting it. Now, when you pervert the idea of family, when you pervert the idea of sexual morality by saying same-sex couples are okay, Satan is right there promoting this idea, and promotes the idea that you can't not have the right to refuse. Personally, when I decide to, if I ever do hire somebody, I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to be held to this truth. If I don't like you because I find out that you are promoting this ideas, you're fired. End of sentence. And people can say, well, that's not a very good way to handle a business. I'm going to say it this much. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the one that owns this business. Any business. I'm just making this up as I'm going, but the thing of it is, the right to refuse is there and is very clear. If a person owns a restaurant and they don't want to serve somebody, they have the right to refuse. Yes, a big stink is going to come up over it, and a big roar about it. People are going to try and block this company because they have the right to refuse. And people are going to say, well, that's bigotry, that's discrimination. Only a liberal would use those words. And here's something that I'm going to say about me, my character. I don't give a darn what your pigmentation of your skin is. I don't care. If it's different than mine, that's fine. If it isn't, that's fine. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. And if you're a liberal, it's called a gender. I don't care. If it's different than mine, if it's not, it's not. If you decide to do the same work as another person in my employment, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you're going to get paid the same no matter what. I could care less about those things. I don't put emphasis on, well, because you're a woman, you've got to get paid the same as a man or anything like that. If you do the same work, ladies, fine. I don't care. But let's get to this right to refuse. If I decide to fire you, then you're fired. And it's spelled F-I-R-E-D. You're fired. Don't ask for any and demand that I fired you because of lack of equality. Because, no, I have the right to refuse you. And if you want to apply for a job and you're a woman and you're not quite qualified for the job, don't scream discrimination. I have the right to refuse you based on the fact that you are not qualified. If you are, let's say, an 18-year-old just getting out of high school and you think that you're qualified to do work for me and I don't hire you, don't hire discrimination. I have the right to refuse. I'm not saying I will refuse you. I'm probably will say I have the right to refuse. You notice what I said about hiring people. I didn't care about your pigmentation. I don't care about if you think that there should be two races of people. Matter of fact, there's only one race. It's called the human race. That's why I say pigmentation doesn't matter to me. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter on your age to me. I have the right to refuse. And I'm going to keep that right to refuse. I have every right to refuse. I have every right to debate it. I have every right to say whatever I want to say. I don't have to be politically correct like the morons that claim to be liberals, Democrats, /communists, /socialists. I don't have to. Matter of fact, I do not hold a secular worldview. I hold a biblical worldview, whereby I'm going to look at the scriptures first. I'm not going to judge you. I can't. It's impossible. I'm going to say this much. If you want to work for me, you better be able to do one thing, the work. If not, you're fired. End of sentence. That's called the right to refuse. I have the right to refuse to retract this if I want to. I have the right to refuse anything. If on that day that you say that I don't have that right to refuse, I'm going to say then you are a communist. You are a socialist. Get out of my way. Because I believe in freedom and liberty. According to freedom and liberty, you have the right to refuse and accept the liberal, Democrat, communist, and socialist ideas. You have that right. Now, I saw on the news how Wisconsin did when it came to voting. There are people that had the right to refuse certain things and certain people and certain viewpoints. That's a right. Now that we're getting close to the end of our half an hour here, we will say it this much. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord's countenance be upon you, and go in peace.